there's never been a woman that has finished all 5 laps of this race. Why do you think that is?
The race is too hard for women. They are simply not tough enough to do it. And I get to say that for as long as it goes, that no woman proves me wrong.
If a woman gets onto the 5, she won't be able to finish it. That's just based on history, mathematics, and facts.
When I heard that people thought that a woman couldn't finish this race, I sort of saw that as a kind of personal challenge. Let me prove you wrong.
The Barkley Marathons is an ultramarathon that takes place every spring in Frozen Head State Park outside of Wartburg, Tennessee. The history goes all the way back to 1977, when James Earl Ray, the man who assassinated Martin Luther King Jr., escaped from the nearby prison into these mountains. In 60 hours, he made it only 8 miles before surrendering to authorities. Following the news at the time, local runner Gary Cantrell, aka Lazarus Lake, was unimpressed. He figured he could cover 100 miles in those mountains. It was then that the idea of the Barkley was born. The first edition took place in 1986. Ever since then, Laz has made it his mission to ensure that the course exists on the very edge of human endurance and potential. Heading into the 2024 edition, there had only been 21 finishes in 38 years, and no woman who had ever started had made it past the 4th of 5 loops. The event is as secretive as it is brutal. There is no race website. Potential entrants must find the correct email address, pay a non-refundable $1.60 entry fee, and then write an essay explaining why they should be allowed to run. Thousands apply, but only 40 are accepted each year. Runners know the start date, but no one except Laz knows the start time. At some point between 11 p.m. and 11 a.m., he blows the conch, signaling that they have 1 hour to get ready. The race begins when he lights a cigarette. Books are hidden along the route in order to prove that runners have followed the course. Runners must tear out the pages that correspond to their bib numbers and bring them back to Laz. While Laz claims that the Barkley is 100 miles long, most estimate that it's closer to 120 or even 130 miles, with more climbing than ascending Mount Everest from sea level, twice. Each year, the course gets harder, and when you match that with variable weather, minimal support, navigation challenges, and sleep deprivation, you get one of the hardest endurance races in the world. You can see, though, that Barkley is more than just an ultramarathon. It's an enigmatic, multivariate problem. And for most, it's the race that wins.
Well, I can't tell you much about the course. Imagine melon-sized rocks covered in slippery, wet leaves, covered in just really thick bushes and brush and trees, and then put that on like really steep pitches, probably covered in fog and rain, and somehow not very much daylight. That's like the Barkley course.
And I remember just like this ominous feeling, like just, I do not know what I'm getting myself into. And it is the one time in my life where I have actually been terrified going into a race, like terrified that I may not make it out.
It's not typically just like the straight up 100-miler that's out there doing it. You've got to be able to climb, you've got to have strength, you've got to be able to really run as hard as you can straight down a hill through weeds that are tangling up your legs, and navigating on top of all that. There's just so many things you have to be able to do.
It was like you would take one step forward and just slide backwards, and it's just so incredibly unforgiving.
You go past that yellow gate, you're on your own. You need to get yourself back. There have been people who have hobbled their way back in, barely able to walk, but they knew no one was coming to get them. They had to get there themselves.
What is unique about the Barkley and why people do tend to go back and fall in love with it is what it demands of you in those moments, which has never been extracted from you in any other moment in life or an event that you've been a part of. You know wholeheartedly, conclusively, that what you're asking yourself to do with that time limit is completely impossible. and you accept that, and then you find a reserve that you've never tapped into before to keep fighting.
I mean, there's so many pieces that go into someone being able to finish it. I think it's this combination of like pretty incredible physical capability, certainly mental toughness and commitment, but then also that component of, reacting and recovering and responding to the thing that goes wrong, of which there are so many in the span of, nearly 60 hours. And Barkley is all about how you respond to things.
What would you want the general public to know about Laz?
I would want
Laz, like the race, I think he's pretty misunderstood.
It's kind of funny. I mean, people think he's just this horrible tyrant who hates and wants to rain down abuse on everybody out there, and he's just not.
I, like everybody else, was very scared of Laz going into it, like knowing like this mystique that people had created around him. And then you meet him and you're like, he does care about people, and he believes in people and he wants to give people an opportunity to push themselves.
He's created these events to test people and give them the chance to test themselves.
It's not his intent to create this, horrific thing. He wants to create them, so my sense is so that he can observe how people handle them, how people respond. He's curious about humans.
Well, I've always been interested in all kinds of athletics and sports. What makes one of them win? What makes one of them lose? What makes somebody who does not have the tools you ought to have still manage to succeed? What makes this great athlete perform when it's all on the line? So then you start breaking it down into the different mental attributes. So you set it up like an experiment with willing human subjects. On paper, from home, everybody's ready to take on the impossible challenge. But the people who go out there, and it's pretty much hopeless. It's beyond your capability, and they are driven to want to reach that spot. You can say in 100 women and 100 men, you'll have a larger number of that 100 men that want to play sports. But it doesn't mean that any of the women want it any less than any of the men. You can't say, well, 40% fewer women are driven to run the Barkley, so every woman wants it 40% less. Nobody's ever come there that wanted it more than Jasmine did.
Deep down, did you want to see a woman finish?
Well, yeah, I wanted for it to quit being a thing. When she won the spine, we got excited and thought, boy, I hope I hear from her, because that's right down the right path.
A British woman has become the first female to win one of the world's toughest endurance races and break the course record in the process. The Montaigne Spine Race is known as Britain's most brutal course, with participants running the length of the 268-mile Pennine Wave. Jasmin Paris crossed the finish line last night after just 4 days, breaking that record. Amazing. Incredible. Can't imagine what drives you to do something like that.
I think modern society is built on this idea that safety is civilization and what we've built up around ourselves to separate us from the wilderness. I think maybe with my upbringing and my experiences since then is that really where I feel happy and safest in many ways is actually those wild places, that's just where I'd prefer to be. And after I ran the spine race in 2019, so at the time I broke the record by like 12 hours, and so people started asking me in interviews, would you ever run the Barkley Marathons? So that's, I think, when it became more of a direct question in my mind about whether I might. So my son was born, my second child was born, and then I was looking for some big challenge to excite me and sort of motivate me. And with both my pregnancies, I really felt afterwards that I needed something new, something different. And I think part of that is that kind of, you're trying to get fit again and you're constantly comparing yourself with who you were before you had that child. And for me, it really helped to have a new challenge that was totally different and that actually would test me in a slightly different way. So with my daughter, my first child, it was the spine I signed up for that point when she was about 9 months old. So with my second, I think he was about 10 or 11 months. And then when I had this day, and I remember where I was, and I was suddenly like, I want to do the Barkley Marathons. I needed to wait for that moment, that realization that I really wanted to do it, because it's not an event that you can sign up for without being like fully committed.
Well, one of the toughest races in the world is underway right now. The 2022 Barkley Marathons kicked off earlier this week.
You can try and find stuff out about Barkley before you go, but realistically, nothing prepares you for what it's actually like when you get there.
Hoping to see a women's finisher soon. This could definitely happen. We've got some strong women this year running. Jasmin Paris, Courtney Dauwalter.
And I remember the first descent, I mean, it was insane. I got to the bottom and the front of my compass had come off. And I think I broke a pole as well, maybe on the first or second descent. It felt completely crazy in a kind of fun way, but also like, we've got a really long time of this to still go. I ran with Guillaume, who's been there a few years, and he kind of pointed stuff out. He was really nice, and he did that kind of veteran thing of showing me the way around a bit. Second loop, it got dark, and I remember it was raining so hard. I mean, it was literally like you couldn't stay on your feet, just slid the whole way down, and everything. The trees were running with water. Like it's nothing like the same in the dark as it is in the day. Like there were new rivers that appeared everywhere. You know, these little streams to add to the confusion of your navigation. Anyway, we made it round that second loop, and as I was kind of coming down into the camp, like it was kind of already obvious that I wasn't probably going to make it for 5 loops, but he was like, get out again for the fun run.
Okay. You're on at 23:52:24.
And now we wait and see, is Jasmin Paris going to be first female fun run finisher since 2014?
Third loop took me something like 16 hours. It was forever.
And 14.
That was year 1. I guess I came away thinking that I could do better. And in some ways I went there not knowing whether this was possible or not. I'd say at the end of it I came away thinking it is possible, but it's going to require a lot of things to happen together at the right time for it to work.
I was there that first year she got the fun run. I believed from her very first attempt, it was like, this woman is gonna be our person who can she can get it done. Women were told that they wouldn't be able to finish this. People are told they're not able to finish this. This is an impossible thing that no one can do. But who's to say if it's possible or not unless you go all in and try.
The second year, the preparation that hadn't been as ideal as I'd wanted it to be. Conditions were really, really good that second year, so part of me was just disappointed that it hadn't all been there and ready to go at that point. It felt a bit like a missed opportunity that those kind of perfect conditions had been there, because you can't really guarantee what the weather's going to be like in the park, and you might go for 5 years in a row and have terrible weather each time and nobody finishes, you know? So it felt like there was this golden year of opportunity and I'd missed it.
Going out on Loop 4.
Yes.
It hasn't happened yet.
She's going. No, she's going.
The good thing about that year is that I still was 4 hours faster on the first 3 loops than I had been the year before. I actually said to Laz, you know, the first year I did 3 loops in 40 hours, the second year I did them in 36. Now if this year I do them in 32, that'll be enough time to finish the last 2. But it felt really satisfying for me to finish that 4th loop, because it really felt like I'd spent more time out there and learned more, and I just felt a lot more confident, I think, about myself out in the forest. Just needed the fitness to be there a bit more, and then it would be possible.
One of the nicest
So do you
mornings
feel
I've
like
ever
that
been in
the
house.
100 is still in reach?
Yeah.
Good.
I do.
And we're counting on you to put this to bed. Congratulations. Excellent work out there.
Thanks very much.
She's the perfect barker. She came, she experienced it, she collected data and refined her approach and came back and had a bigger success that still mathematically really wouldn't indicate that she could finish, because realistically she can't.
You believe that?
No, mathematically you can't support from her first 2 attempts that she could do it, and mathematically you can't support the possibility of what she actually did. The clock was running. She went back and she put together the game plan that she had to make to do it.
This year, more than even the previous years, I think I did a lot of climbing, so a lot of kind of hill reps in training. So I just get to somewhere and I'd run up and down and up and down, which in some ways can be fairly mind-numbing. So I usually get up at 5 and I'd train from about 5:30 till 7 and then do a kind of strength class for half an hour and then take my son to nursery. If I was in the lab, I'd cycle from nursery into town. So that's an extra kind of bit of training I got in as well. And then at weekends I'd do these like long sessions, and because I'd be trying to get in as much as I tend to be getting up pretty early in the morning because I want to really spend the weekends with my kids. So there's a kind of famous session that I think I've referred to. Went to bed at 8 and I got up at midnight, and it was just lashing it down with rain outside, and my husband said to me, "You're not going out in this, are you?" And I was like, "Yeah, I am." And the dog looked at me. The dog sort of looked at the door, peered out of the door and sort of looked at me questioningly as well, but it was about 1 degree Celsius, so the minute you sort of started climbing, it obviously turned to sleet and then snow. Felt in some ways a little bit crazy, and I did 17 reps up and down a local hill, and for almost 5,000 meters, and I think it was about 8.5 hours. It also really builds confidence to do things like that. I think it was the training. I think it was that knowledge as well. I just felt less intimidated by Barkley this last time. I could concentrate, I guess what I could say, I could concentrate on just the physical act of getting round.
Oh, it's okay. You'll thank her later.
When he gets breakfast. Right, come back, I've got to dry you off. I wore shoes that I think have been to Barkley now 3 times. To be fair, I wasn't wearing them in between. And this year I sewed them up and I patched them before I went, so I used this kind of pair-ups kit. I wore trousers that I wore the last two attempts on Barkley, and now to be fair, they have a lot of little holes in because there's so many briars at Barkley. Yeah, and I wore the same t-shirt that I've worn all 3 times I've been there, so I wanted to show that you can wear the same kit season after season, you can repair the kit. What better way to do it than to do it yourself and to show that it's possible? Because it's not about whether you're running in a new t-shirt or an old t-shirt, it's about how you're running, isn't it? So tried to demonstrate that. I'm really conscious, like I am very far from perfect, and I think with that comes a feeling that I feel bad that I flew to Barkley, and that was definitely part of my dilemma. And actually, part of the reason I think that it all came together this year was a little bit in the back of my mind was like, I can't keep flying here, because for me that felt like it already felt like a bit of a dilemma every year I did it, and I was like aware that each time I was going to say, how long are you going to keep doing this? There was something different this year. Like there was something about it that I felt like I just felt this quiet confidence of it being possible.
If I were to put myself in Jasmine's shoes, I think after completing 4 loops, but like the torture you had to put yourself through to get those 4 laps, and then to know you have to start at 0 again, it would be really hard to come back, but also impossible to not go back.
Take a minute to remember why you're here.
make sure you get your asses out alive and to have some fun out there.
I had this kind of race plan, if you want to call it a race plan, that I was going to try and stay with either kind of John Kelly's group or Jared's group, somewhere at the front for the first 3 loops to give myself, I wanted enough time to finish the last 2.
So she had to go out too fast to buy enough time to be able to finish it, knowing that I'm going to really be suffering. It's going to take an outlier among outliers. And then it will simply take the supreme effort of all time.
I think on the first loop, I sort of, John Kelly and Damien kind of co-dropped me just after it was around the fire tower that they'd got away and sort of did the rest of that first loop on my own. And then just did a kind of quick turnover at camp. Probably of the whole Barkley, that was the best I felt in terms of physically capable of climbing. Coming up to the climb up at Ratjaw, I saw them ahead of me and I saw Iniho turn around and waved at me and I was like, I'm going to catch them. And I did by the top of that climb, and it was like just reeling them in. I felt it was easy, it was one of those moments where the climbing just felt easy and that actually it was a real confidence boost. So by the top, I was back with them and so I'd managed to close this gap.
Jasmine has put herself in the mix, returning to camp from Loop 2 with the lead group of John Kelly, Damian Hall, and Eeyore Veris. She's pushing herself, and the course has absolutely taken its toll, but she's focused and in great position. Right there at the gate, she's met and crewed by her husband Conrad, who has been there for all 3 of her Barkley attempts. Barkley's difficulty has increased so much in recent years that more of the front runners feel that they don't have the time to go back to their campsites to get crewed and generally to take more time preparing. Instead, they take care of everything that they need right at the gate to minimize elapsed transition times.
Yeah. I don't know how well this turned out. Actually, that looks like it's good.
Did you get it on the back? You need Mr. before.
It would be right up there with the watermelon slingshot.
A fake or the other guy will get.
I need to go to Luke.
It changed the whole world.
The coats are good.
Nice job, Ehor. Good turnaround.
All right, nice work.
There you go.
Jasmine, go get it.
After meeting with their crews and readying themselves for a push through the rest of the night, their group of 4, including Jasmine, head out onto Loop 3 together.
See you guys. Have a good night.
Go, go, go!
Another group, including Greg Hamilton and Jared Campbell, arrived at camp from their Loop 2 completion shortly after that lead group of Jasmin Paris, John Kelly, Damian Hall, and Eeyore Veris. One of the hallmarks of the 2024 event so far has been the apparent camaraderie of the runners, working together to overcome the difficulties of this course. Of the 40 starters at this year's Barkley Marathons, only 12 continued on to Loop 3, a remarkable attrition rate and a revealing indication to the sheer difficulty and magnitude of the challenge that Barkley presents on multiple fronts.
Looking so good. Way to go.
Jasmine crests Frozen Head Mountain and descends the briar-filled Rat Jaw, followed closely by Jared Campbell and Greg Hamilton. For spectators, aside from camp, this is the one other location we are allowed to catch a glimpse of the runners and the intimidating terrain that they face on each loop. It's a new day back at camp, and Eeyore Veris, Damian Hall, and John Kelly arrive to the gate having completed 3 loops, also known as a fun run. There's little time to acknowledge that milestone, however, with so much more on the line, so they make relatively quick work of aid before heading back out for Loop 4.
Last time to learn it. Really think about it. Catch up soon, dude. Have a good one. You too, man. Really strong.
Jasmine returns to camp and touches the gate in just over 32 hours, successfully completing a fun run. Despite falling back from the lead group, she is running 3.5 hours faster than her 2023 time.
Including
She got him.
And on the third loop, I started to feel bad. That was like one of the worst moments, really, because I sort of knew I was going to make myself go out again. I had enough time to finish the thing, so there was no question about the fact that I was going to go out again. And at the same time, the thought of having to go out and, you know, when you're feeling pretty bad, you just feel kind of sick and just drained. Then the thought of going back out and doing those climbs again and going back out into the wilderness on your own, it's pretty hard to kind of face. And that combined with the fact that, you know, there's no choice, you're going to have to do it because you could finish this thing, as I said. Woo!
Thanks.
There's me.
Well, right here where this bolt comes in, with 2 Phillips heads across it. Right! Here you go, Jasmine.
Touch that gate and I'll give it to you. All right, Jasmine.
After spending most of the past 32 hours working in groups, Jasmine leaves camp alone for the first time to begin Loop 4.
Yes. Run your own race, Jasmine!
You've got nowhere to hide, you know, you do these events and it kind of strips away everything, all the stuff that comforts you and surrounds you and makes life comfortable and easy and safe. It strips all that away, and so it's really raw. It's just down to you. That can be both wonderful and it can also be pretty revealing, you know, you can have to face some stuff. I just kind of retreated inside myself and I'm kind of fighting this inner battle. And then sort of coming up to Stallion Mountain somewhere, Jared and Greg caught me. And I think I said something like, do you mind if I kind of try and hold on to you guys for as long as I can? And at Barkley, you can work with people and there's this like, you create this incredible kind of bond, I guess, even if you don't really say anything to each other, because you're just working together and I guess going through the same struggles. But at the same time, you know that because of how tight time limit is, you can't wait for anybody. There's no time to wait. Yeah, and then we kind of carried on, and then towards the end of that fourth loop, they dropped me. And very quickly, their head torches disappeared in the blackness above me.
Back in camp again, John Kelly and Eeyore Veris are the first to arrive, completing their fourth loops. John and his crew decide that he should get a few minutes of sleep before heading back out, while Eeyore again makes pretty quick work of aid and turns around to go out on his fifth and final loop.
Do you have your belt?
Next into camp are Greg Hamilton, Damian Hall, and Jared Campbell. This is already the most Barkley runners to finish 4 loops and to start a 5th in the history of the event.
At one point, I just was feeling really sick, like these waves of sickness washing over me. At one point, I literally curled up on the forest floor, and the forest floor just felt like the most comfortable bed. There was nothing better than lying on that floor at that moment, curled up. That was the single moment when I really thought of home and my kids. But I only let it last for like 30 seconds or something, and then I made myself get up and...
Jasmine completes her 4th loop in 46 hours and 29 minutes. Jasmine is now on the edge of uncharted territory, as no woman has ever started a 5th loop in Barkley history. John, Damian, and Greg depart onto loop 5, leaving just Jared and Jasmine in camp.
So I was sitting there and I was actually trying to make myself feel a bit better because I felt terrible. And I think I said, I'm going to have 2 minutes sleep. Right? I was trying to do anything to try and make myself feel less sick.
I think that was almost the hardest bit, because I sort of said to Comrade, that was so awful, I really don't want to go out. And at the same time as I was saying it, I knew it wasn't an option, you know, like I wasn't going to allow myself not to go out. And I think it was that's what like kind of made me put my head in my hands.
Is if ever more than one person leaves on lap 5, which this year multiple people did, the individual who leaves first picks the direction, and anybody after that, person number 2 goes the opposite direction, person number 3 the opposite. The intent is to ensure that there's a lap, the final one, where you truly have to do it on your own.
You have more room for error on clockwise than you do on counterclockwise. Finding the books counterclockwise is more complicated, and a small miss can become a really big miscounter, whereas clockwise, you have a little bit more margin for error as you're navigating your way through the course.
It's really an important thing when there's 2 folks there that, you know, one person's going to get a preferred direction. And so, I mean, the gravity of that moment and that decision was not lost on me yet.
Jared, which direction you want to go?
You don't choose. I guess, yeah. No.
What do you want to do?
You don't mind.
What's next?
Next is clockwise. Jared, prefer clockwise?
I don't mind.
Jared then came over and said, you know, if you want clockwise, it's, you know, like if you want to go clockwise, it's the next direction. If you go now, you can have it, type of thing. And I guess at that point I had these 2 competing things. I had the thought that I was going to have to go out again, and I guess you don't want to put that off a little bit. And also sort of felt like it was his direction. I didn't want him to compromise his race for me.
Jared. You. And I just called him over real quick and I said, hey, she absolutely wants clockwise. She's not going to ask for it. I think if you hang out for a sec, she'll appreciate it and she'll get out real quick.
Jasmine, are you close to being ready to go? If you want clockwise, it's all yours.
Wow.
I didn't expected nothing different. It wouldn't have mattered who it was. And to a certain extent, the Barkley is not just a contest between the runners, but between the collection of the field and the course.
Okay, ready to go.
44:38.
Thank you very much.
Very good.
But Jared really wanted to make that happen, and it was so cool to see the way that the experienced barkers, John and Jared, were assisting those that were going for their finishes. John doing the same thing for Ihor and Damien.
It was just that knowledge that he had that confidence. It was kind of like a personal confidence boost. Like he believed in me enough to give me the chance to go clockwise, you know.
Jasmine leaves camp for the fifth and final time with 13 hours and 31 minutes to complete the final loop. She has little margin for error, as every second will count from here on out.
If anyone could do it, she could do it. Watching it transpire, it just seemed so unlikely lap by lap that she could make the next one, but somehow she forced herself to do it.
I was just running on adrenaline. I think on that final loop I had 2 gels and maybe like a Snickers bar or something. It was hardly anything. Each bug kind of ticked off and kind of gave me this extra spur. I got to sort of the new section and I made a mistake, and it was a fairly small mistake in the sense that I was probably 5 degrees off of my compass bearing. The bottom again sinks out of your stomach. You just panic. You're trying to keep it down and it's kind of bubbling out of you, and the knowledge that you have almost in your mind's eye this kind of hourglass, and you can kind of see the sand trickling away. And so in my back of my head I was like, that's all mental, so just put that to one side. You've got to run as fast as you can downhill, so you just got to let go. So I was running downhill and like I guess as fast as I could go, like back again as if I was on the first loop. I remember one particular moment when I was climbing and I was aware that my steps were getting slower. I was kind of slowing down and I needed to get them to move faster, so I started chanting, and I couldn't think of what to chant, so I just chanted names of people in my family, and it was like they were giving me a push with each step, but I chanted quite fast to try and get my feet to keep up with the chant. I was really aware of that, I guess, for those last few hours, that 1 minute might be the difference between finishing and not, that I was really on a mission. I really thought it was possible.
Jasmine reaches the fire tower later than expected, with less than 4 hours to make it back to camp. Logical estimates give her very little chance to finish, as she will have to run this final section faster than she had on her first loop.
Every second really counted. Even the act of like doing that to get to my bag, like that took time. Like I didn't even do, so I had 1 gulp of water on the way down and one when I got to the river at the bottom as I was crossing it. I took like a mouthful of water with my hand. I got to the kind of valley and there's this pit where you, just before you kind of do the final bit of trail into camp, there's a bit where you cross a car park. And every other loop that I'd been on, there'd been other people in the car park, and I don't know if they were like spectators or people that just happened to be in the park. But that final loop, it was like this really eerie moment because I expected there to be people there like cheering me in, and there was nobody there. It was like ghostly quiet. It was dead.
Back in camp, finishers come rolling in. Ihor Veris is first in 58:44, a remarkable accomplishment, especially given that it was his first time at the Barkley Marathons. John Kelly is second in 59:15, his third career finish at the event, further solidifying himself as one of the all-time greats here. Damian Hall gets lost on lap 5 and returns without all his pages. He will have to look forward to another year for that coveted finish. Jared Campbell arrives in third place with a time of 59:30. It's his 4th career finish here, the most of anyone, and it comes 12 years after his first. A remarkable stretch of accomplishment, particularly in an event that is annually being reworked to increase in difficulty. Greg Hamilton arrives in fourth in 59:38. His finish was particularly rewarding after years of commitment and sacrifice from 2 previously unsuccessful attempts.
And I got onto that last bit of trail, and I think that's when I looked at my watch, and I think I had 8 minutes. And that was the moment when I was suddenly faced with the idea of like, you might not make this. The whole race and the run up to it as well, I really believed that it could happen, that it was gonna, that was gonna make it happen. And so that's why I think when I was doing that final section up to the gate, that's why it was so awful, because I was suddenly struck with the possibility that after all that, it was like drifting, it was slipping through my fingers, that moment.
You had been sitting there in hopelessness forever, just waiting for the time to tick off and for it to be done and over with, and she didn't make it again. Because no one believed it was possible from the fire tower when she got there so late. And we had just reached the point where we said, she hadn't come into sight, I think it's over. But humans are amazing, so you kept it open until you got right to the end.
And it was really awful, because like everything in me wanted to stop, because it was then like flat stroke uphill and I couldn't run anymore. I was totally done. I couldn't breathe anymore. I was just retreated somewhere inside myself and was just like, just keep moving your arms and legs.
He said she's coming.
What? Oh shit.
That's what he said.
I was distinctly aware that at some point I was going to collapse, and the question was whether I was going to make it to the gate before I collapsed or not. Say is that I thought in the past that I've like dug deep in races, but for that moment, for those final minutes, I kind of opened a door onto a new level of what I was capable of.
That was easy.
I don't think any finisher ever paid the price Jasmine paid. And then when she touched the gate, she was done. It was hugely emotional.
I was in my house by myself and just started like screaming, just so excited. I'm really hoping that Jasmine's finish is kind of like the 4-minute mile phenomenon, is that it's like, no, like women can do this. And I believe that there are actually many other women out there who can finish, who just haven't had the opportunity yet.
It was very exciting because it was the first woman. It shows that women aren't weaker, and there's a lot of possibility out there.
As a father of 2 daughters, who wants to see 2 young girls grow up strong and confident and looking at barriers, perceived boundaries differently than most, it meant a huge amount to me. It's incredible.
Jasmine believed so much in herself and knew that she could do this, and then showed up to show the world that it could be done. Her legacy will be this, though. It will be, there's only one first.
At Barkley, a lot of people said a woman couldn't finish it. It's more that, I didn't necessarily believe what other people told me was possible. I wanted to kind of go out and try it for myself. And it was somehow this self-belief. I absolutely have no doubt that was what got me through, because if you look at the kind of margins of what difference, there were so many times when I could have slowed down for a moment, but I had this really strong belief that I could do it. And that's what kept me going the whole way through. Also for this kind of idea that so much of what you can achieve is down to you, and that kind of self-belief. And sure, you have to work hard. I worked super hard to get to Barkley and to kind of achieve ultimately what I did. But so much of that final kind of finishing in the end was actually down to how much I believed it was possible.
Every time someone finishes, I've said this before, I feel elevated just to be present when an achievement of that magnitude is accomplished. To watch them from the beginning to the end, what they have to endure, the resolve they have to have, the knowledge, the skill, the physical conditioning, and just this absolute refusal to surrender. You feel like you're a better person just because you saw someone that big. When a woman finishes, I'll be excited. I'll regret that I can't tell women that it can't be done anymore, but it's been fun while it lasted.